The COVID-19 pandemic became one of the most tragic chapters in human history, taking millions of lives around the world. Among those who died were bright stars who lit up our screens, filled our lives with music, laughter, and magic. These talented people passed away from coronavirus complications, leaving behind an unforgettable legacy and emptiness in the hearts of millions of fans. Each story is a reminder of how quickly our lives can change and how important it is to treasure every moment with those we love. Their names became symbols of the losses humanity suffered during these dark times of global crisis. They weren't just celebrities, they were people with dreams, families, plans for the future that will never come true. The pandemic didn't distinguish between rich and poor, young and old, famous and unknown. It took lives indiscriminately, leaving behind only pain and memories. Dawn Wells. America lost its sweetheart. Dawn Wells will forever remain in Americans' memory as Mary Ann from the iconic series Gilligan's Island. This actress embodied the image of the perfect girl next door, sincere, sunny, and beloved by many generations of viewers. Her character became a symbol of innocence and strength, wrapped in a simple checkered dress and ponytail. She was the girl next door on a deserted island, wholesome, sunny, and beloved by generations. Dawn Wells brought charm, warmth, and heart to every episode, becoming a symbol of innocence and strength wrapped in a checkered dress and ponytail. In December 2020, at age 82, the world lost this charming smile that brought comfort and memories of simpler times. Her passing wasn't just sad news, it was a painful blow for millions of fans who saw in her not just a character, but an embodiment of kindness, innocence, and the American dream. For millions, she wasn't just a heroine, she was comfort, a memory of simpler times, a smile you could count on. Behind the scenes, she was just as generous an advocate, a teacher, a woman who never stopped shining. The island might have been fictional, but Dawn Wells' impact was as real as it gets. And while the show continues to live on in reruns, Mary Ann and the magic that Dawn brought to her can never be replaced. A little piece of American pop culture died with her. Her passing was more than a sad headline, it was a gut punch for fans who grew up with her, laughed with her, and found comfort in her kindness. Dawn Wells became an icon of simplicity and sincerity in an era when these qualities were especially valuable. Carol Sutton, the soul of Southern stories. Carol Sutton was the true soul of Southern stories. A quiet storm on screen, steady, powerful, unforgettable. She was a quiet storm on screen, steady, powerful, unforgettable. This talented African-American actress didn't just act, she lived in every role she took on. Carol Sutton didn't just act, she lived in every role she took on. For decades, she created unforgettable images in film and television, bringing the richness of Southern strength and grace to life with every word, every glance. From Steel Magnolias to Queen Sugar, she brought authenticity and depth to every role. Her presence was warm, wise, and grounded, the kind of actress who made everything around her better. For decades, she was one of Hollywood's best-kept secrets, and those who knew understood her value. In December 2020, at age 76, Carol Sutton lost her battle with COVID-19. The virus might have taken her breath, but it could never silence her voice. Her legacy is woven into the soul of every project. She touched a storyteller with depth, dignity, and heart. She didn't seek the spotlight, but she illuminated every frame she entered. From New Orleans scenes to millions of screens, Carol brought authenticity to stories that mattered. And now the screen seems emptier, the South a little quieter. But her light, her truth still glows in every story she helped tell. Carol Sutton represented the best of Southern theatrical tradition, deep, emotional truthfulness that resonated with audiences regardless of their background. Antonio Sabato Sr., silver icon of elegant danger. In the heyday of international cinema, Antonio Sabato Sr. was the embodiment of elegant danger and quiet strength. A true actor with a passionate soul, he possessed piercing eyes and a commanding presence that could captivate a room with just one look. In the heyday of international cinema, Antonio Sabato Sr. was the embodiment of elegant danger and quiet strength. The Italian-American actor burst onto the big screen in classics like Grand Prix and Escape from the Bronx, cementing his place among cinema's most captivating leading men. With his piercing eyes and commanding presence, the Italian-American burst onto the big screen in classic films, cementing his place among cinema's most captivating leading men. He was more than just a name on the poster, he was a force, a presence that could hold a room with just one look. In January 2021, at age 77, Antonio's final scene was stolen by an invisible killer, COVID-19. It wasn't supposed to end this way. Not for a man who survived car crashes and shootouts on screen. Not for a man who put his heart into every role. The virus played the villain, and the curtain fell too early. Antonio leaves behind a legacy of intensity and charm, as well as a son who will continue the family name in Hollywood. The applause may have quieted, but his spirit lives on, bold, unforgettable, eternal. His cinematic presence was something more than just acting, it was a force of nature that could fill the frame with energy and magnetism. Antonio Sabato Sr. embodied the classic ideal of Italian cinema: passion, elegance, and undeniable masculinity that made him unforgettable to everyone who saw him on screen. Barbara Shelley, Queen of Horror, wrapped in elegance. Barbara Shelley reigned over the golden age of British horror as a true goddess of fear, wrapped in elegance and mystery. She was the scream that echoed through the golden age of British horror, a goddess of fear dressed in elegance and mystery. Barbara Shelley wasn't just an actress, she was a cinematic sorceress who ruled over classic Hammer horror films, including Dracula, Prince of Darkness, and Village of the Damned, and also graced the world of science fiction with her performance in the cult series Doctor Who. With every glance, she froze spines. With every word, she commanded the screen. She gave horror a human heart, making the supernatural terrifyingly real. Barbara Shelley wasn't just an actress, she was a cinematic sorceress who ruled over classic Hammer horror films. In January 2021, at age 88, the final curtain fell, not in a castle of shadows, but in the cold realities of the pandemic. COVID-19 took the life of this beloved icon after Barbara contracted the virus while recovering from a fall. There were no dramatic cinematic cuts, no gothic thunder, just the quiet heartbreak of a legend fading away. Her voice may be silent now, but Barbara Shelley's legacy continues to howl through every flickering film, every midnight movie screen. She was the queen of nightmares, and now she's a ghost who will never leave us. Her influence on the horror genre was immeasurable. She didn't just scare audiences, she taught them to love fear, made it beautiful and captivating. Barbara Shelley set the standards for female roles in horror films, showing that a woman could be simultaneously vulnerable and strong, beautiful and threatening. Bruce Williamson, the voice of temptation that stopped time. Bruce Williamson possessed a voice that could stop time, soulful thunder wrapped in velvet. He had a voice that could stop time, soulful thunder wrapped in velvet. He wasn't just a singer, he was a powerhouse, a beacon of passion who carried the Temptations' legacy into a new era. Bruce Williamson wasn't just a singer, he was a powerhouse, a beacon of passion who carried the Temptations' legacy into a new era. Joining the legendary group in 2006, he brought their immortal hits to life with electrifying energy and captivated hearts of crowds around the world. When Bruce took the stage, the past and present danced together in harmony. When Bruce performed on stage, the past and present danced together in harmony. In September 2020, at just 49 years old, Bruce Williamson's voice fell silent due to COVID-19. It happened quickly, unexpectedly, just days before a scheduled virtual concert for fans who still craved live music in a lockdown world. Gone was a man who once said he didn't just sing songs, he sang feelings. Even after leaving the Temptations in 2015, Bruce never stopped giving. His solo career was just unfolding. But the virus took more than a voice. It took a dreamer, a fighter, a soul who made others feel something special. And while the microphone is now empty, Bruce's spirit still echoes in every harmony. Painfully bright, heartbreakingly unfinished, that's how the memory of this incredible performer will remain. Bruce Williamson represented a new generation of soul music that respected the traditions of the past, but wasn't afraid to experiment and bring fresh ideas to the classic sound. Nick Cordero, Broadway's bright light that dimmed too soon. He danced, he sang, he soared. Nick Cordero was a rising Broadway star, a 6'5" giant with a heart just as big. Known for his unforgettable roles in Rock of Ages, Waitress, and A Bronx Tale, Nick illuminated every stage he touched with old-fashioned charm and rock and roll character. He possessed a voice that roared and a smile that softened even the hardest scenes. Behind the scenes, he was a devoted husband and young father, a man who was just beginning the next act of a life full of promise. Nick Cordero was a rising Broadway star, a 6'5" powerhouse with a heart just as big. In March 2020, COVID-19 attacked. What followed was a brutal months-long battle that captured the attention of the entire theater world. Medically induced coma, leg amputation, multiple setbacks. Fans around the world prayed. His wife Amanda Klutz documented every heartbreak and every hope. What followed was a brutal months-long battle that shook the theater world. Medically induced coma, leg amputation, multiple setbacks. But the curtain fell on July 5. He was only 41 years old. Nick's death wasn't just a loss, it was a heartbreaking symbol of this virus's cruelty. Talent that should have continued to rise was cut short midway. And yet his story, his courage, and his spirit continue to sing far beyond the footlights. Nick Cordero is gone, but he will never be silenced. His struggle became a symbol of courage and hope even in the darkest moments, and his legacy continues to inspire young actors and musicians around the world. Nick Cordero's story became one of the most heartbreaking examples of how the pandemic affected the creative community. A young, healthy talent full of life and plans was taken in his prime. Triny Lopez, rhythmic maverick with fire in his soul. He wasn't just a singer, he was a force of nature, with a guitar in his hands and fire in his soul. Trini Lopez brought the world hits like If I Had a Hammer and electrified audiences in concert halls and on silver screens, including his standout role in The Dirty Dozen. With that signature smile and swagger, he blurred the lines between folk, rock, and Latin flair. His performances weren't just concerts, they were celebrations of life, identity, and joy. Trini Lopez brought the world hits like If I Had a Hammer and electrified audiences in concert halls and on silver screens. In August 2020, the world lost Trini at age 93, not on stage, but from COVID-19 complications. The same virus that led to empty concert halls around the world found him too. Suddenly, the applause stopped. A man who played through barriers, racial prejudice, genre limitations, even time itself, was gone. And yet his legacy refuses to disappear. Every guitar string struck with passion, every song carrying Mexican-American pride, echoes with his spirit. In the silence he left, there's still rhythm. Trini Lopez may be gone, but his music never will be. His contribution to the music industry was invaluable. He opened doors for many Latin artists who came after him. Trini Lopez was a pioneer of multicultural music who proved that talent has no nationality, and true music can unite people regardless of their origin and culture. Trousdale, boy band heartthrob who left too fast. He had the looks, the moves, the voice, and a million hearts screaming his name. Trousdale found fame as a teen idol in the early 2000s as part of the boy band Dream Street. lighting up stages with his infectious energy and magnetic charm. For fans, he was the poster on the wall, the dream on repeat, the star who made growing up a little more magical. But behind the lights and fame was a real performer who loved music and lived for the stage. Chris Trousdale found fame as a teen idol in the boy band Dream Street in the early 2000s. In June 2020, the dream ended too early. Chris died from complications related to COVID-19 at just 34 years old. It was sudden, shocking, and cruelly unfair. A young, vibrant life full of rhythm and hope was silenced by a virus that showed no mercy. He was preparing for a comeback, for new music, for the next act. Instead, we were left with silence where there should have been applause. But those who grew up with him will never forget how he made them feel alive, seen, understood. Chris Trousdale may be gone, but for a generation, he'll always be a star. His impact on early 2000s pop culture was significant, and his memory lives on in the hearts of those who grew up with his music. Chris represented an era when pop music was innocent and optimistic, when young artists could inspire millions of teenagers simply through their sincerity and enthusiasm. Charley Pride, pioneer who sang through barriers and broke records. He broke the rules, then he broke records. Charley Pride wasn't just a country singer, he was a revolution wrapped in velvet vocals. As country music's first black superstar, he shattered racial barriers with every chart-topping hit. From Kiss an Angel Good Morning to Is Anybody Going to San Antone, his songs didn't just play, they healed. His voice was pure gold, and his legacy was bigger than music. Charley Pride wasn't just a country singer, he was a revolution wrapped in velvet vocals. In December 2020, just a month after receiving a Lifetime Achievement Award from the Country Music Association and performing live on stage, COVID-19 took him from us. He was 86, still shining, still singing, still inspiring. His death was more than tragic, it felt unfair. Charley had spent decades breaking down doors that tried to stay closed, and now a virus knocked down a giant who had already won so many battles. Charley's death was more than tragic, it felt unfair. His contribution to country music was revolutionary. He proved that talent has no skin color and paved the way for future generations of African-American country artists. Charley Pride was a true pioneer who changed the face of American music forever, proving that real music can overcome any prejudice and unite people around a shared love of melody and rhythm.